Welcome to episode 49 of the Hard Truth About B2B E-commerce. I'm your co-host, Isaiah Bollinger, and I'm here with Tim.
Hi, I'm Timothy Peterson. Welcome, everybody. Episode 49. I think for 50, we should do a giant celebration. We'll see what we can plan. It's amazing we've gotten here, right?
Yeah.
So let me give a couple sponsor mentions right at the start, just to get us rolling. Our first and original sponsor is Punch-Out-To-Go. They're a global B2B integration company specializing in connecting commerce business platforms with e-procurement and ERP applications. Punch-Out-To-Go's iPaaS technology seamlessly links business applications to automate the flow of purchasing data. And with their solution, you can immediately reduce integration complexities for Punch-Out catalogs, electronic purchase orders, invoices, and other B2B sales order automation documents. Thank you to Punch-Out-To-Go. And then we have a second sponsor who joined us a little more recently, Balance. Balance is a B2B e-commerce payment solution that works for you and your buyers. It offers a seamless one-click checkout for almost any payment method, including ACH, wire, checks, cards, even terms. And it's used by leaders in B2B e-commerce, and it's as easy as buying a shirt from Amazon. Check them out at getbalance.com, book a session, tell them what your needs are. And they are the first dedicated payment platform for B2B e-commerce, 100% tailored to your needs. Thank you to both our sponsors. Isaiah, I hear we have a great guest today.
Yeah, I'm very excited. I think this will be a unique episode. We're here with Jordan Huck, the CEO of Notch. Is it just Notch? You guys go by just Notch, I think, right?
Just Notch, yeah. Our domain is Notch Ordering, so certainly some people call us Notch Ordering, but yep, it's just Notch.
Yeah, and I believe you were also recommended by Balance, our sponsor, so we got a little connection there.
Oh,
you guys are in the restaurant B2B business, B2B e-commerce business. So tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into Notch.
Sure.
It wasn't your first business, obviously.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is my second go in terms of scaling up a company. So previous to Notch, I spent 13 years at a technology services company. So when I say technology services, is actually large banks, telecoms, making procurement, helping them make procurement decisions on technology services, whether it be outsourcing or contingent labor. 13 years, we scaled that company up. We were lucky enough to have a successful sale of that company. And then I actually got exposed through a venture capital company in Toronto to what was Chef Hero at that time. So got introduced to the management team there. And they were sort of getting ready and looking to take things to the next level. And so I ended up coming in, taking over as CEO, investing in the company. And the reason I made that decision was just the scale of this problem, right? So, before I made that decision and I'm dedicating my life to solving this problem, I spent some time with some restaurateurs, right? And I, worked earlier in my life in food service, and so was aware of the problem, but didn't really understand the scale of it. So if you're a restaurateur and you procure, so 40% of your cost of goods sold, so the spending
Food
for your business,
food,
exactly.
Equipment.
So well, let's even take equipment out of it. So 40% will be spent on food and alcohol, right? So F&B, anywhere between 30 and 40, depending on the type of operation. And that procurement is done completely offline, right? So, the average restaurant will have, between 7 and 9 distributors. But when you get into the restaurant group segment, right, those multi-locations, some complexity, in any major city across North America, you can have 15, 16, 20 different distributors. And so if I'm a restaurateur, when I go to discover a distributor, that's offline. When I go to place an order, that's offline. When I go to, check the status of my potential delivery, that's offline. When I actually receive an invoice, it arrives on paper, right? I receive a paper invoice. It arrives on a truck as my product is dropped off. And then as I go to make a payment, And so you talk about the problem that our friends over at Balance are helping companies solve. When I go to make a payment, guys, it is unbelievable. The way in which funds in this industry are exchanged are through what are called push payments, meaning I've got an invoice, I push you out a check, or I, as a bookkeeper, push you out an e-transfer. Nothing is automated, right? So
there's a lot of manual processes going on, and probably a lot of time that's getting sucked up from, especially for the business owners dealing with all these people, or the manager, and then they can't run the restaurant.
Yeah, and so there's just an incredible amount of wasted time, inefficiency, and again, this has impacts when you think about the food service supply chain in terms of wastage, right? This inefficiency affects many different areas of the operation. With our solution, for the first time, a restaurant group can bring their entire supply chain online, fully integrated into the other parts of their business, right? Like if you're a restaurateur, we've got this increased digital adoption, with COVID, you've got, almost every restaurant that's using some type of third-party delivery. I know they're trying to bring those fees down, and there's companies working on that problem, but you've got, point of sale is almost ubiquitous across restaurants.
That's what I was going to ask.
Yeah.
We're actually hopefully going to be bringing on someone that was one of the early employees at Toast.
Oh, great.
So Toast or whatever, Square,
Sure.
like you guys, is that a key part of what you're doing? Is you integrate that, and then they
Great question. So again, guys, you've got this verticalization of in the technology stack, right? So you've got Toast that lives in point of sale. Well, now they've expanded and they're also doing inventory, right? So with Toast now, you've got an inventory management component, because for restaurants, you've got to understand recipe costing. What we do, so we integrate, our product fully integrates into these inventory management systems, where, some of the largest inventory management systems in the world, where I place an order. So an order occurs. So when I deplete my inventory, when a diner eats something, it'll adjust that inventory level in my system. When an invoice comes back after I place an order on the Notch product, it automatically updates that par level.
Okay.
Right. So I've got fully, guys, that's the innovation, right? It's getting rid of, the innovation here is getting rid of the need for a chef after they've finished their shift to be sitting on a milk crate entering par levels, meaning I've ordered milk, it's arrived, and I got to enter that back into my system, whether it be Toast inventory or MarketMan or Optimal Control.
So let's back up for a second. So you guys are taking the data. So if the restaurant is going to order everything in the POS, right? Like I go order all my food or whatever. I'm the customer. I'm 100 customers. I order all my food at the POS, and then the waiters go and order it into the POS correctly. Assume it's correct. Let's hope it's correct.
Yeah, let's hope.
You guys should know exactly, okay, they ordered 11 of this, 12 of this, blah, blah, blah. So you know all the inventory decreases, assuming everything was made correctly. And then you guys can automatically refill it so that the chef does not have to go and tell you that they made 100, they depleted 100 different meals. Is that, I'm trying to understand it as the layman's non-restaurant.
No. From a layman, you're describing it correctly. So 100%, a diner walks in, order gets placed, goes into the point of sale, that's connected to inventory. Your what's called par levels, guys, in layman, it just means like how much food I have on hand. So if this many heads of lettuce gets depleted, at that point we get some requests, we can have what's called a standing order where it'll automatically happen. Most restaurant groups don't want that. They like to have some eyes, guys, on top of that, where their team, either the chef or the operations manager, is going to go in and quickly, using our product, place an order to one of their distributors. When that invoice comes back electronically from one of their distributors, it automatically updates those par levels, those inventory levels, meaning For the first time in history, I have a completely online supply chain. And then if I want, I can use optionally, it's an optional, I can use Notch Pay to automatically flow money from my bank account to my distributor's bank account based on the outstanding invoices that are in the system.
So this is, I'm going to oversimplify this, but it reminds me a lot of the conversations that I've had on the B2C side about smart refrigerators, the dash button, what the original idea was supposed to be, so is there also a component, let's say, that is divorced from the entry that is, let's say, in the big freezers, right?
Yeah.
Where you can have, okay, I want to understand that as well, because I think that could be useful to a lot of the people in the space.
So Tim, I think the concept you're talking about is Internet of Things, right?
Yep,
Where
of course.
You've got,
yes.
Yeah. So you're talking about IoT. So guys, we're a technology company that's fortunate to be going through a tremendous scale up right now. The adjacent opportunities downstream on things like Internet of Things, and where you can have sensors to be able to detect when inventory, absolutely, right? That would see us getting out of the vertical that we're in and expanding a little bit in terms of really trying to bring innovation to the inventory side of the business. Right now, we're very focused in this vertical, specifically around ordering, because the size of the
consulting fee when you get to that point. We'll just
absolutely. The scale of the problem is so significant that's our focus. Right now.
What is the scale? Let's talk about, you're talking about what, 100 billion, 500 billion? I mean, restaurants just in America, that's pretty big, right?
So 1.1 million restaurants in North America. It's a $400 billion market in North America, $6 trillion market globally.
Wow.
Food service is, it's difficult to find an industry this big that's still completely offline.
Yeah.
Now, there are many reasons why it still has been, guys. There is so much nuance and complexity below the surface here. I'll give you one example. If you sell t-shirts on Shopify, you have one price, right? If you're in B2C e-commerce, you sell your t-shirts for a price. That's your online store.
Yeah.
And
you might have
there's
some promotions and some discounts, but it's just a coupon.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. But Isaiah, right? You'd be providing those discounts in theory. Maybe you provide them by region, but for the most part,
they're universal.
Yeah. Well, on its surface, at first take, the food service side, in terms of distributors, isn't a space that immediately lent itself well to e-commerce. Let me tell you why. And so we've obsessed about tackling that problem. Is that if I'm a meat distributor and I have 1,000 clients in the Chicago area, for example, I will have a unique price for all 1,000 buyers, because I've been using a direct sales force to distribute, and my sales rep got whatever price they were able to negotiate. And so when you try to bring that online, your system needs to be able to manage those complexities, right? Where, you need to be able to give distributors and buyers a one-to-one experience on your product.
Yeah, we're very familiar with this problem. I mean, what we got exposed to not early on, but about 4 or 5 years ago. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Infor SX ERP. It's a distribution ERP, or Infor is an ERP, SX the distribution division, and we partnered with an Infor SX provider. We're the e-commerce provider, and we partnered to say, okay, let's build a better e-commerce solution for that market, because they didn't really have a good one. And at the time, it made sense to go with Magento because we had full control as source. And what we had to do was we've actually overridden the pricing of Magento. It pulls in real-time pricing from Infor SX, because they all have the same problem where they could be a food distributor. Most of these are kind of like hard goods distributors, but let's say they're a distributor of textiles. They might have the same thing. They might have 10,000 customers, and they all have a fairly unique price, or at least enough price variability per customer, where we don't want to have to take that data and then duplicate it and sync it in another database that isn't designed for that. So what we have to do is just display it on the e-commerce side, but it's not actually living there. It's actually just being pulled in real time from the ERP and just checking the customer and kind of going back and forth, right? So it's a pretty hard problem
Exactly.
because, you know, when you're dealing with real-time data like that, you have caching issues, you have index, like, to make sure it's real time and it's fast enough and there's no issues. It's been a challenging problem to solve when you're kind of like trying to marry two softwares that really
100%.
very different. So, I mean, this is one of the key, I mean, this is one of the exact reasons why we have this podcast, right? Like that, you just explained like one of the maybe 100 B2B problems that just like, you know, if you go on any of the
Only
other
100.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? On these other podcasts where they're like, hey, you know, here's how you can sell more shoes with Klaviyo. Like, they're not going to really help you if you're a distributor.
No.
So let me ask a piece of this then. So, you know, I'm a restaurateur, you know, and I'll have one location, or I'll have a small set of locations, or I'll have a giant, you know, operation that's nationwide. So you are able to assist all these different people in whatever ways are necessary. So really just start from the small business side. Like, tell me like how that works when there's like a one location restaurant that needs assistance.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So a one location, you know, restaurant will have certainly have different needs versus a restaurant group, where a restaurant group will, so again, more complexities from a B2B perspective, we'll have permissioning requests, right? Whereas I want the person receiving not to be able to see the amounts that are outstanding on the product, right? And so we've, again, spent a lot of time on that different permissioning for different users. You know, for a single location, you know, what we'll do is understand and work with them to onboard their distributors, right? That's the first, you know, that's the first step here, is that, you know, a small single location will say, hey, I want to bring my supply chain online. I want to be able to order, consolidate, use chat to communicate with my supply chain, and I want to use Notch Pay to Pay. And so we'll actually onboard their distributors. We can do it in a very lightweight way. We've spent tons of time and money building out the integrations to integrate into a large amount of the systems that we see on the distribution side, systems like QuickBooks Desktop and QuickBooks Online and Sage and SAP. And so
you'll probably see RSX soon, like I just mentioned.
I hope not, man. I want to see less fragmentation, but that won't happen. And so we'll reach out and onboard those distributors. And you know, at that point, you know, we'll allow, and so to your point, Isaiah, we'll pull pricing, right? If it's from an ERP that we integrate with, we'll pull pricing from that specific ERP to reflect on this store we built for the distributors. And we make that incredibly seamless for them. There should be no extra work. Ideally, there's less work for a distributor, because I'm going to talk about we haven't even tackled the other half of the problem we solve yet. Talk about that in a minute.
Ooh, I can't wait.
Yeah. And so at that point, we'll onboard those distributors. That single location restaurant will pay us a subscription fee, a fairly nominal subscription fee, and then we'll hope to try to work with them to get them to use Notch Pay. So instead of using checks and physical, having to put your bookkeeper through the process of sending a wire, let's automate your payables for you, Mr. Restaurant.
Yep. So all they have to do is basically look at, hey, Notch thinks we need, 100 of this because of everything that was ordered today. Do we approve these resupply, re-ups of all these things? And then they, maybe they tweak stuff. I'm guessing if they're like, oh, we have an extra head of lettuce that like we forgot about or something. And then
And then they like eyes on it, right? They like eyes on it. Like the industry, with as much friction in food service, there isn't anybody that's really comfortable yet for automated orders going. Yeah. I mean, it's a certain scale, of course,
a tough business,
for hotels.
Low margins. Yeah. You need to be on top of it, right? You don't want to over order and have extra food. It's also not the kind of stuff you want to order that you have extra of, right?
Correct. Perishables. So, our focus is on ensuring that the integrations work flawlessly, that the invoices that come in are perfectly updating those par levels, and that, you know, I'm a restaurant and I fully understand when it's time to go and place my reorder. In markets, guys, where we have density, so like Toronto, for example, where we've just built out a ton of supply, we have close to 100,000 SKUs. We also have relationships with distributors where we've built out online stores for them. And so restaurants have the opportunity to shop and compare, right? They can see live pricing amongst 3 produce distributors, right? For the first time ever.
So tell us about that side. Tell us about the distribution side.
Sure.
You guys only work with distributors. What about a manufacturer that's like, or
sure.
the guy that's like, hey, you know, I'm just gonna go straight to Notch,
Sure.
and
Yep.
you know, now you're my distributor, right? So tell us about
Yep.
that side of the business.
Yep.
And,
Sure.
what happens? You know, even 100,000 SKUs. There's so much food out there. What if they need that 100,001?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So on the distribution side, so we talked about the problem, right? The problem, you know, on the restaurant side, my B2B procurement is completely offline for the thing that matters the most for me, right? For the thing that's most important, I got to control my food costs. B2B procurement is offline. On the distribution side, you know, my order desk is offline. So what do I mean when I say that? So we have countless, you know, hundreds at this point of stories that we hear, and it's the same every time. It's, you know, I come in. I was in Chicago this week, and there was somebody there in that office. They received 300 orders a day. That person wakes up at 1 a.m. to start checking voicemails from chefs from the previous night. Right. So those orders come in. They take the stack of orders. They give it to the order desk person. Then the order desk person spends 2 to 3 hours manually entering those orders into QuickBooks Desktop. And so you can't attack this segment if you're not going to solve the problem on the distribution side. And the problem on the distribution side is that their order desk is offline. So we built the first B2B e-commerce tool. We built the first B2B e-commerce tool purpose-built for wholesale distributors, meaning I can now bring my, I can now reflect. So if I have 5,000 unique prices across 5,000 different buyers, I can reflect that on my e-commerce store for my specific buyers. Okay. I now ask my chefs to come on and order online. I can use Notch Pay, right? And so I can use Notch Pay to create pull payments for the first time, right? When you pay your mortgage, you don't get the opportunity to cut the bank a check, right? Like they pull the money directly from your bank account. Just wholesale distribution has never had that, right? They've never, had the infrastructure or the scale to be able to set up these pull payments for ACH or EFT. And now they can do that, right? Using our product Notch Pay. We've also partnered, with, we've created partnerships where we can actually do lending on the product as well, meaning if I'm a distributor, I can factor my receivables. So if I want to receive payment from a cash flow perspective right away, I can click one button and do that. Now I have to pay a fee for that. Yeah. But instead of having receivables outstanding 30, 45 days, I can get paid instantly.
Yeah. So you're adding kind of that fun box. That's their focus. That's all they do. They just do factoring.
Correct.
So tell us about like these, QuickBooks desktops, or, a lot of these guys are on kind of these legacy ERP systems. I mean, what if they have? Do you have to do some custom integration sometimes?
Yeah, great question.
Yeah,
great question. So you, one of your sponsors is an iPass provider, right?
Yes.
Yes. They're actually very focused on integrating at the procurement level. So the buyer can go into their ERP and just like make a purchase on that, and it'll just trigger.
Yep.
Back up to the.
So we, we've got that. We are successfully executing against our ambitious vision to be the first company ever to fully integrate into the incredible fragmentation side that you see on the restaurant side, and the incredible fragmentation from a technology stack that you see on the distributor side. And so we did the first integration custom with QuickBooks Desktop, which can have a whole podcast, but not that many people would listen about the challenges from doing an on-premise to cloud integration, right? Challenging, very challenging. And then after that, we partnered with an iPaaS provider and now can do integrations in a matter of days, right? It comes with stock integrations. And so we spent a good amount of time. And so now it's like, we feel like we have a services partner that almost is a shepherd of our API, right? That they help us
If you don't mind me asking,
do these integrations at scale.
Is it like a MuleSoft or a Celigo or?
We used Workato.
Workato. Okay, I'm not too familiar with them. There's a lot of, there's so many solutions out there for everything, but I think that the lesson learned here is trying to do a lot of custom integrations is really tricky. So it makes sense to kind of find an iPaaS, whether it's Workato, Celigo, PunchOut2Go.
Exactly.
MuleSoft is like the Salesforce one. They're pretty expensive. So
we looked at them. We looked at them all. Anyway, but yeah, to that point, for us, a company that's going to need to continue to do that at scale. And so, now we've got a product team that just focuses on integrations, and it's a big part of our business. But we can now scaling companies, guys. From my perspective, my job is to just remove the constraints, right? That was a major constraint we fixed 3 quarters ago. Now it's on to the next constraints to unlock growth.
So kind of a user question. So let's say, again, I'm the restaurant, and do I have the opportunity to get like a dashboard and set up a bunch of KPIs? Can I get analytics from you guys with like forward thinking ideas about how to improve my business? I mean, how does that work with you?
Sure. Yep. Yeah, it's a great question. And absolutely, right? So first off, our product on the buyer side is really your central hub for everything that you order, right? Here are my deliveries. Here are the amounts outstanding, and then, we can push analytics. We can either provide you more custom analytics via our dashboarding tool, or we've actually already integrated into the Google API. We can push any custom reports into Google Sheets that you might want, and we get those requests, quite consistently. I think people want to understand, most restaurant groups at scale are now using an inventory management system, right? And the most important metric is recipe profitability, right? Based on what I'm selling, based on the food costs and where they're at, and the price point in my point of sale that I'm selling this dish at, where am I at from a recipe profitability? And so our critical link in that is ensuring that our integrations are working flawlessly, invoices are returning, they're accurate, and they're accurately reflecting when it updates inventory management system. So they'll either get recipe profitability from one of their existing systems that are in place, or they can get it as we push out into a custom report, for them.
So do you also offer promotional opportunities or just awareness opportunities? Let's say I'm, an oat milk company, and I want to, talk with you guys and tell everybody out there that here are the recipes, the menu items you could put oat milk in, right? Do you do things like that as well?
Yep. Yeah, we do. So we run custom promotions on behalf of our distributor partners quite consistently. For us, and what we've heard and have built is, if I'm a distributor, I want the opportunity to try to unload my sell-off SKUs right, on a consistent basis. And so we spent a lot of time and money on building out a chat product where we've got the ability on the restaurant side and the ability on the distribution side to use that chat product as a distribution tool to everybody in the network, right? And that's why we're focused on building out the size of our partnership network. And so if I'm a distributor and I've got sell-off SKUs, I can send it out. So big part of our business there, and big part of the value proposition for distributors.
So I want to change gears a little bit. I mean, this is awesome. I think you guys are it's pretty clear you guys are really passionate about trying to solve this B2B problem for restaurants. Let's go like a little broader, right? Because
Sure.
the whole point of this podcast is it's this entire industry that we feel like kind of needs to completely transform. And frankly, like maybe I'm a little what's the word?
Crazy.
Crazy, not crazy, but like, I call it the B2B apocalypse. Like we saw that in retail, right? Like we saw retailers that didn't evolve, Sears, Toys R Us, blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of them, right? And they're dying. You see these little old, it's always sad when you like go by like a town and you see like the local retail shops, you can tell like closed down.
Sure.
They didn't evolve on Shopify, or you know what I mean? They didn't.
Yep, of course.
B2B, I feel like, has somewhat survived because of, like you said, everyone's used to ordering offline, so they don't have to innovate as quickly. I feel like that window is eventually going to close for them, and they can't just be like, oh, we have we're a three. I mean, I see this all the time. 300-person company, which is fairly substantial company, right? Like,
Yep, for sure.
Business, it's hard to build a 300-person company. And they have one IT guy, one e-commerce guy. Like, so you're telling me that's how little importance it is in your 300-person company of one tech guy or one e-com guy. I just don't think that's going to cut it for too much longer. And so whether, let's go a little bit broader. If you're, you sell food, equipment, food restaurant equipment. So we're talking to a restaurant supplier, equipment supplier. Doesn't matter what you sell, but you're selling to businesses in some capacity. Where do you think, I definitely think they should look at marketplaces like a Notch. I'm sure there's other ones for different industries. But I think they can't put all their eggs in one basket, right? Like you can't just say, all right, we're just going to only sell on Amazon, right? Like that's probably not.
Sure.
What do you think that they should, and this is a very broad question, and I know it very much depends on the business and where they're at, but where would you invest as, manufacturer, distributor? Would it be in, a PIM for better product information management, upgrading your ERP to QuickBooks on like a cloud-based system that has better APIs? Just give us like, 2 or 3 things that you think they should focus on, because they do have a limit. They can't do everything, right? We all know they only have like 2 IT guys, right?
Sure. Yep. Well, look, I obviously, am somewhat, I come at this question through the lens of the problem that I solve, Isaiah, to be frank, a little bit. But, obviously, there are great products, and no connection to Intuit here. Please switch to QuickBooks Online if you're a distributor versus QuickBooks Desktop.
So can we agree that getting off these legacy on-prem solutions, it should be a very high priority, because all of them have a new cloud version.
High priority. High priority in my opinion, because of.
Let's use that example.
Because of so Sage has an on-prem, like QuickBooks Online versus QuickBooks Desktop. The QuickBooks Desktop product is much much more difficult to integrate into, right? And causes a lot more challenge. It can be solved 100%, and let's not go deep into that in this podcast, but just creates much more challenges. So yes, it's important, but I'm going to put my mind I was in Chicago this week touring major, distributor operations.
You're the owner. So
I'm the owner. Hey, you know what? It's working pretty well right now for QuickBooks Desktop. I got a business that's working really well. I can rely on the Intuit product. I can enter, if I'm not aware that I can even solve the problems of taking all my order desk operations online. Like the current method in which a distributor thinks about scaling their business right now, guys, is my business has grown 10%, meaning I have 10% more manual tasks to complete in terms of accepting orders, placing them into the system, sending out more paper invoices on trucks, collecting more checks, getting them deposited into the bank.
So let's hire like 3 more customer service.
Correct. And that is exactly, that is exactly how I think about it. And so look, Intuit has built a very solid accounting / like you can kind of think of QB Desktop as a little bit more kind of / ERP type product.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I'm not even aware, right, that this is a problem that can be solved. Well, why am I not aware? I'm not aware because B2B markets have lagged consumer markets significantly in terms of the innovation. Why? They're much more difficult problems to solve for all the reasons you talk about on this podcast. But that time is changing, right? It's the consumer rate, the new age of chefs now expect digital ordering, right? This new digital native, like the why now is that if I'm a chef at a restaurant, I expect to be able to order to my distributors online. Guys, the biggest telltale sign for us as a company, as a software company, that we're on to something huge is that we hear distributors some of them trying to build custom software, custom B2B e-commerce products. And we're like, oh, here we go. Like, if they're trying to build custom software to solve the problem. So this is why we know we've got a group of people that are just really excited and energized to solve this problem every day, because I walk into that operation this week in Chicago, and the stack of invoices, we can get rid of those. The guy waking up at 1 a.m. listening to orders, we can take those orders online with our e-commerce product. Sending out checks and having 30% bad debt, we can bring that to almost zero with pull payments, right? Like, we can set up pull payments automatically.
That's huge. I mean, we're a B2B company, right? And one of the number one things I track is bad debt. We've been doing it for 10 years. So occasionally you have something go wrong, you get kind of in a dispute over something. And we've got our bad debt down to almost zero, but it was a very hard problem to solve. And unfortunately, we can't do pull payments for everything because we do a lot of custom services. And I don't think people would let us just pull all the money that we want out of their accounts. So.
Well, and that's believe me, that's a big part of this problem, right? So again, you're 100% correct, right? Like, are restaurants ready for that? Well, if I'm a distributor, maybe I have to bring my prices down 50 basis points. So it's like the market's going to adjust to facilitate a more efficient way of transacting, right? Like, let's bring B2B commerce online. The thing about it is, it's not a question of if it's going to happen, right? It's 2021. It's going to happen. Is it Notch? Is it another company? Like, so that's what drives us every day.
Combination, right? My theory is it's going to be, you need to position, and we had a PIM company that was very interesting, based out of Europe. They actually have a free version, which I think is really cool, because
that was so smart.
PIM is generally a barrier for most of these companies, because they're like, we can't afford this $5,000 a month PIM, but they have a free version. So it's kind of cool to see something that gets a low barrier for enterprise software. But I agree with them in that no one knows where all the channels are going to be in 5-10 years. We do know Amazon's going to be a channel, right?
Sure.
We do know Walmart's going to be a channel. We know that restaurants are going to exist, right? We know, so there's some things that you can count on. So I think, you need a Notch, but you have to kind of set yourselves up to be able to go multi-channel quickly.
Sure.
Without, being super reliant on just one manual way of doing business.
And one thing I would bring up too, that again, it's been touched on in our podcast a lot, and I get in conversations about this, is kind of the openness in B2C, like being able to compare and read reviews and all that sort of stuff, is now moving very quickly into B2B, and people have to figure that out, right? Because again, you can't have this entirely closed system anywhere anymore, because people won't put up with it for much longer. They want to know, well, how much are they paying for eggplants, because they're the same size restaurant that I am and they're down the street. It becomes a whole
I could imagine logging in and being like, well, this guy's, I looked at all the reviews, he's got the best eggplants, like, why don't I just go over there? Because
it's a challenge.
So guys, 100%, and that ability to shop, discover, and compare, right? That that is our expectation as consumers.
Mm-hmm.
What we learned the hard way, and any entrepreneur trying to bring tech to B2B, I would envision they'd say the same thing.
We've learned a lot the hard way.
Okay.
This is the hard truth about
it's B2B. The hard truth.
Okay, be careful about, so understanding the nuance of our industry. Our job is not to drive a wedge between a chef and their distributors, right? They value those partnerships. They're incredibly, they're incredibly important to them. Our goal, and when you run a B2B marketplace like us, it's not easy. It's not like a B2C marketplace, guys, where we unlock latent supply, right? Like an Uber Eats, where they unlock a courier network, right? So something that didn't exist. We take existing procurement and have to make it more efficient, right? If I'm a chef and I have 16 different distributors, I'm not going to go on the Notch product and switch all 16 if I could save $4.
No.
But do you know what I mean? It's not as price. It's not as price sensitive, whereas consumers very much will be if they can shop and compare around a product that they think is a commodity.
Here's a question. I agree. It's not as price sensitive because, saving $1 when you're a $5 million restaurant, it doesn't really matter. But I do think we're going to hit a place where it becomes convenience sensitive. So if it's significantly easier for me to buy from distributor A and it's even a little bit more expensive and I get the exact same products, I might switch to distributor A because it can automate all my processes. Yep. I don't have to spend, 5 hours after the restaurant closes and burn out and lose all my chefs because they
100%.
Till 2 a.m. Right.
100%. Absolutely. I mean, we're trying to, literally our mission is to cut through the chaos at Notch, right? Like let's get this chaotic offline process online, make it easier for chefs to interact with their supply chain, make it easier for distributors to fulfill. And then certainly in time, there'll be that discoverability and that searchability on the marketplace. We see it when we're at scale in places like Toronto. But yeah, to your point, it's not as price sensitive. You got to take everything that's painful for them and get it online.
Yeah.
So what are you working on right now? I mean, I like asking that a lot of our guests.
Sure.
So tell me something that's that you're either bogged down in or you're excited about, or what are you working on right now?
Sure. We are really focused on a couple of things right now. So we've very much proven out the need. So we, the way we think about building software, we do stuff manually before we actually build out the product. So, Notch Pay is a product that we're really, really excited to be just releasing this quarter. We're doing it manually with our first, couple of partners, but so that's huge for us in terms of, allowing, payments to flow digitally. And so, huge focus for us. We're also really, really focused. You asked that question earlier about sort of promotions.
Mm-hmm.
We're really focused on increasing, the efficacy of our communication product, right? Like our chat product, where we want it to be, without going too deep here, we want it to be at the order level. We want. There's a lot of friction in wholesale food service, right? I buy an apple or I buy a box of apples, I typically get back that box -1, or so think about it. When you order protein, right? You order meat, you order seafood, there's what's called catch weight adjustments, right? Like you got to weigh it, you pay by weight. And so you want to attack every part of the problem, and making all of the disputes and allowing the friction to be taken away seamlessly, ordering on our product, is our obsession right now.
Yeah, I could imagine that there's so much complexity around, like you just mentioned, weight, right? In consumer markets, typically you think of units, right? Or I get 1 t-shirt, right? Or 2.
Yep.
But when you're talking about like supply chain and B2B, like I could get a barrel of something, and that barrel might come with 1,000 lobsters in the barrel, or 100. You know what I mean? Like,
correct.
It's not these exact perfect numbers all the time, and you have weights and much more complicated unit of measure. Have you guys tried to come up with some sort of uniform schema for that, or is that almost impossible because it's just there's too much different kinds of data?
No, it's a really, really good question, right? And so, I mean, we have to reflect the units of measure through which our distributor partners sell, right? And so what this causes, so we're a wholesale marketplace, right? And so what that means is that your product needs to be able to facilitate transactions across many different, like on the protein category, to your point, Isaiah, you got to be able to adjust for catch weight, right? I got to be able to weigh it. For, you know, produce, it's got to be certain barrels. And so it just creates additional complexity where it requires really strong product thinking in terms of, okay, how do we take this complexity and still make our products? Because when you're trying to go to distributors and chefs that want products that are consumer, like we really try to think about building software with the same ease at which a consumer, like nothing's further than a couple of clicks, right? Mm-hmm. Demo, we don't need to demo, guys. Like we'll demo it to you, but the demo takes 3.5 minutes. No, that's the standard we try to hold ourselves to.
Yeah, that's
awesome. If you're going to try to you know, bring something online like this. So, you know, we've spent a ton of time on the taxonomy, right? And Apple, you know, what happens if they call it an Apple Gala and they call it something different, right? And
that's
so,
what I was gonna say. Like that must get,
yeah,
like not every, yeah, that must get so hard to normalize that data, right? So
it does. So
I want to ask one more question around, you know, I'm kind of thinking that the more that, and we've had this a couple times on the podcast, where like, you know, one of our very experienced B2B or e-commerce guests was like, the biggest problem is culture. It's not, he's like, it's not even like if you fix the culture, you can kind of fix a lot of these problems, right? And so you brought up the point of, hey, I'm growing 10% a year, growing 5% a year, so I need to hire 5% more staff to do the same things over and over again, right? Do you think that there needs to be a B2B culture shift to start thinking, hey, well, instead of just hiring more manual people or people to do more manual tasks, mm-hmm. how can I hire more people to streamline these tasks? And I think to your other point, there are solutions like a Notch, or there are providers like Trellis who are experienced in B2B and can take platforms like Magento or BigCommerce, not necessarily reinvent the wheel for everything.
Yep.
Use a Punch Out to Go or Workato or Balance, right? Like, I think there's enough B2B technology out there where you don't necessarily have to like there is some custom development involved maybe in integrations, but you don't necessarily have to completely reinvent the wheel. You just have to shift your mindset to say, all right, let's find the right partners and bring new pieces together to automate, you know, 20% of the business. So now I don't have to hire 20% more. I can grow 20% with automation. Okay.
Yep.
Is that, you see where I'm going?
No, Isaiah, no, I do. I, you know, the question is the culture in B2B ready for this change, right? Is it, you know, and so I spend my time thinking about that. And, because, you know, there's this kind of famous saying, right? You know, you don't want, like, if you're early, right, it can be a real challenge, right? If you're early and you have the right.
I'm aware. I've been early many times in things that I've built and services that even products I own that I've built today. I feel like I'm still a little early, and I'm like, I don't know.
There you go. So it's about crossing the chasm, right? How do you sell disruptive products? How do you help get an industry moving in the right direction? And
let me just add one thing. You don't want to be Google Glass in 2013, right? I think
correct.
They were a little early.
Correct.
Google Glass and
correct.
And so where do you think we are in B2B, and what's that balance? It seems like you guys are really thoughtful about like making it easier for them with technology, but not being so crazy and trying to build, you know, the Tesla robot.
Yeah, of course. And that's why we're not yet talking about, in an earlier question, about Internet of Things, right? Sensors and fridges yet, right?
Too early for the fridges, right? But
it's too early to layer in IoT. But so guys, we're doing what's called category creation. And you know you're doing category creation when your competitor is the incumbent solution 95% of the time, right? So my competitor, 95%, and there are a couple that are attacking this space in Europe. There's sort of 4 or 5 of us attacking this space across the world on a $6 trillion industry, okay? All still early. So 95% of the time, clipboard is our competition, right? So the incumbent way in which you operate. And so you're doing category creation. So we think about doing two things. For us, when you're doing category creation, you got to be evangelizing, you got to be talking to them about the problem. You got to be educating your sales, your go-to-market has got to be very, hey, we're here to educate. Did you know you can do things differently? Are you aware of the efficiencies we could bring you, right? And so we've got sales leaders from Uber Eats, right, who've got experience kind of bringing new stuff to the market, in food tech. And so, we've been very deliberate about that. And then the second thing that you need to cross this chasm, to really get over it, is you need big distributors and big restaurant groups that'll start to be, before a market will tip, you need big names that adopt. And that's all we focus on, right? Because that's the beachhead that starts to create and we're actually seeing it in Toronto, this tipping effect, where it's such a tight-knit industry. And once it's out that this is the best way to do things, it tips at a speed that you're just lucky to be there, right? And we're just experiencing that now in our, in the market where HQ, and we're working to get that going in our other markets. We're starting to see early signs of it, but so those are the two keys, right? It's hard. And so you have to, right, it's this early adopter, early majority, late adopter. We caught ourselves trying to work with partners that weren't yet ready. They weren't the early majority. They weren't yet ready to make this leap. And it cost us
Really
some time,
good
it cost
point.
us some money.
And it's something that I've taken to heart at Trellis, because we've done the same thing. I turned down a piece of business that, they were potentially ready to spend $500,000. It was about a year or two ago. And the reason I didn't exactly turn it down, but I told them there's too many risks here. There's so many red flags. And then they thought we couldn't do it. And the reason I said that is because I didn't think they had the internal people and staff to do the project with us. And we were going to get stuck, doing a project that was going to fail because they were trying to culturally, they were trying to level up, but they didn't have the internal people to level up, if you get what I'm going.
I do. I absolutely do. And so this is it, right? And at some point, we got to will. I say this to my team: we got to bring into existence the future that we want to see.
So
we're trying to.
Yeah.
Oh no, just a quick add-on in here. We've talked with a lot of people about how COVID accelerated things, right? Because all of a sudden things changed and you had to change in some way, right, as a business person. So how has that accelerated things or changed things, just for the arc of Notch? I mean, how's it work for you?
So we're going to be a COVID cohort, right? In 2008, that recession gave birth to the sharing economy and all these incredible tech companies that came out of that, needing to share assets. And so we were down 80% in April of 2020, and had to go through some difficult layoffs, and it really forced us to just refocus on the actual problem that we're looking to solve in our B2B market, right? And the problem that we solve in our B2B market is not necessarily giving restaurants the experience that a consumer wants around, I just want to shop and compare all day. That's not the mind of an operator, right? They want to reduce the chaos that exists in the process with their current distributors, their current providers. And so it changed everything for us. It's that those constraints that our distributor and restaurant partners felt helped shape our product strategy, which is why we're having the success we're having now.
Well, Jordan Huck, CEO of Notch, I really thank you for being our guest. And also, I think our listeners are going to learn a lot, and I want them to contact you. Should they what is your site again? I want to make sure they find you.
www.notchordering.com, and they can reach out to me at any point, jordan@notchordering.com.
Excellent. Isaiah, any final words?
No, I mean, it honestly almost sounds crazy not to consider you guys if I was a restaurant. I'm trying to think of why I wouldn't. Why wouldn't I?
Right? Wouldn't I?
Well, I appreciate that plug.
I'm sure there's some people that are not as easy to convince. But yeah, this was amazing. We'd love to have you back on, let's call it, give you a year. I bet you in a year you'll come back and you'll have all sorts of crazy stories and problems and things that we didn't even think about.
I appreciate that. Guys, I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for having me, and I look forward to coming back.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.